Hi, I'm Adam Coldwells. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive at NHS Grampian. Let me start with a quick definition. Racism is treating anyone differently based on the colour of their skin, or their nationality, or their ethnic origin. We all know that, right? And in the 21st century, surely we can all agree racism is bad and it has no place either in healthcare or in fact in the whole modern world. I'm confident we can all agree, but if only it was that simple. Many people watching this will undoubtedly be sitting, watching, thinking something like, but I'm not racist, this isn't for me. That would be a mistake, but an entirely understandable one. Well, we've made big strides combating racism, and I'd emphasise there's still a lot more to do. Race is a very, very challenging subject. Not just to talk about, not just because it's subject to many people, but because it has so many layers, both conscious and unconscious. Like everything in life, it's all about context. That context, and there's no getting away from this, is that people from diverse backgrounds have had to live with racism, explicit or implicit, conscious or subconscious, for their whole lives. Everyone's experience is different, of course, but tragically, it's like everyone from a diverse background in the UK has been forced to live with racism. That's to one degree or another. That is the context, whether we like it or not, in which every seemingly well-intentioned question or comment about race is asked. We all need to be hyper-aware that generalisation or stereotypes, which assume people from the same ethnicity are somehow all the same, those are wrong. Not only that, but they are adding to the long legacy of being treated differently for that person. These so-called microaggressions are something everyone needs to be mindful of. It's clear to me that if we don't bring the same level of understanding, consideration and person-centred compassion to how we deal with and think about race that we do to every other part of our work in healthcare, then we are part of the problem and not part of the solution. That for me is unacceptable. It's okay to talk about race is the title of this film. And it's true. It's very much okay to ask about a person's experiences, to ask in a positive, friendly way about their background, their culture. It's also okay to offer your support to your colleague, to your patient, but crucially to that person. That's one of the key messages in this short video, which is intended to help to increase your understanding of race. This is by offering some insights into the real world experiences our colleagues have gone through. And I'd like to really thank the members of staff who have been involved for coming forward to bravely and frankly speak about this. I found it insightful, and hopefully you will too. I also hope you will hear loud and clear in the 3 stories you're about to see. We all need to challenge and call out racist behaviour, and that needs to happen at the time, and we need to offer our compassion and support afterwards. Let me be clear, NHS Grampian will support you. Let me also be clear that racism is unacceptable in any form. We're not naive enough to think it doesn't happen or that it won't happen in the future, but we will take robust action where it does. If you need any help, advice or support with an issue related to race, know that you are not alone. Be assured we will stand shoulder to shoulder with you, and our dedicated equality and diversity team, our HR Hub and your colleagues are all available to lend their support to you.
As a person, racism has made me doubt myself and my place and my relevance in this world and in the NHS. there's still very few black doctors, and there are very, very, very few black surgeons. To put it in context, it was only in 2009 that we had the first black female British orthopedic surgeon, after years and years, centuries even, of surgical practice in the UK. And it's the same in every specialty. It's in the 2000s that we're getting the first black this and the first black that. And it makes me very sad. But I'm determined to keep going, because I know there's people coming behind me, just like there were people in front of me who paved the way. And I'm hoping I can be a source of help and support and inspiration to people coming behind me. The earliest memory of racism I have in this country was when I was a fourth-year medical student. I went to visit my brother in Durham University, where he was studying. And I was walking along the street, and this group of people in a car drove by me and shouted, "Get out of this country, you dirty coloured." And they threw a ketchup bottle at me, and it stained my clothing. And I felt very shaken, because Durham is such a nice place and the people there are usually so giving. So I didn't understand. And I didn't tell anybody, and I didn't report it to anyone. I told my husband, and he was understandably infuriated on my behalf, but I just didn't understand why someone would do anything like that. And fast forward a few years to when I was a foundation year one doctor. I was working in a gastroenterology ward, and there was a gentleman there who was a regular attender because of alcoholism. And it had got to the point where he was seeking medication and opiates inappropriately. And the nurses, quite appropriately, had asked me to go and talk to him and explain to him why it wasn't best for us to give him this medication he didn't need. And just to put it delicately, he did shout quite a few racial slurs at me and said the reason why he doesn't understand why they would send this, insert your slur there, doctor to talk to him. Couldn't he have somebody white? And I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. And I'll forever be grateful to the charge nurse. She's a lovely lady called Sharon, she was a white lady. She turned to him and said, "That's it. You don't speak to any of my doctors like that. You will leave this ward right now." And I felt so protected, so protected. But that instance of someone standing up for me is quite rare. Silence from bystanders is very damaging to those who are experiencing racism, because already as a minority, you feel very othered and very different, especially in a country like Scotland that is majority white. When people are silent, it almost gives validation to the aggressor, and I think that's very wrong. You often feel alone and alienated, and it makes the racist experience worse. And I know it's difficult to talk about race, and I know a lot of people don't want to get involved because of fear of what will happen to them. But as I mentioned before, the most special moment I experienced was when that charge nurse stood up for me when I was a little FY1 and told a patient point blank that you should not speak to a person like that. And it's incidences like that that I hold on to when it gets really bad or I feel really uncomfortable. Knowing that your colleagues support you in that way is so powerful. So I would encourage anyone, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you feel, even if you don't feel comfortable confronting that patient, if you take the time out to say a word of encouragement to the person that underwent that traumatic experience, it does a lot to help the self-esteem and make the racist event a bit better. I like that statement, see the person, not the differences, because even though I'm a Black woman, I do not represent all Black women all over the world, because at the end of the day, I'm just Sesi. So Sesi is 5'2", and Sesi likes to bake and likes to dance and likes to sing. Sesi is married to Josh, loves to do surgery. She laughs at the odd off-color joke. She loves going to church. She loves her mother. So this is Sesi in a nutshell. And none of these things are because I'm Black or because I'm female. And I'm sure I can find so many similarities with so many different people from so many different backgrounds if I just bothered to learn a bit more about them.
I think equality, diversity, inclusivity is something I have lived a life around it. Sometimes I say that once a minority, always a minority. The country I was born, I was a religious minority. But when I came here, I suddenly found that there was issues going on. There is scope of speaking up, and I wanted to take the opportunity of speak up. So that's how I'm here in this role. I have involvement with the university and the deanery. Students come to me with their stories. The stories that came are heartbreaking, and they have faced racial behavior both from patients and their colleagues, unfortunately. For example, from a patient has refused to see a black member of staff because they were thought they were Muslims and they didn't want to be examined by them. A student in the classroom, was told by a teacher that Nigerians are good at many things, but timekeeping is not one of their values. There was a comment like doctors of who had Caucasian origin talk openly that doctors from outside UK are not good enough. And even somebody has mentioned that she was asked why they don't go back to their own home. When the junior doctors, in occasions, reported this to their supervisor, they didn't really stand behind them. Another example is a student was called monkey by a patient, and a group of nurses were laughing rather than protesting, so as if this is just a funny thing. We really need active bystander training and understanding how to support somebody if they're facing these sort of attitudes in the work environment, even in the community. I think as a group in north of Scotland, we haven't worked with multicultural environment for years and years, and it's probably a recent trend in last few years, and people don't have any idea like how to deal with any sort of complaint if they face, and just I'm trying to minimize things, and people have got to feel like if complaints go formally, this can be big issues, and people haven't got idea how to face these things. We have started a group called GM's Group, which is Grampian Ethnic Minority Staff Network. And one of the theme came like there is deep-seated fear in minority ethnic staff. I mean, they really are scared of speaking up. And I think it didn't just start in one day, it's very deep-seated. Many senior staff in the organization doesn't know how to report if they face racial, inappropriate behavior. So, as a result, in 10 years, 20 years down the line, they would just work, but they would never enjoy, and they would never feel they belong to the organization. And if that sort of senses are calm, my worry is, would they be able to offer safe patient management? So this is a patient safety issue as well. I think we need to think of it in that way. As a doctor, my oath was to make the best outcome for my patient and to offer the excellent management possible. But to do that, I need to be energetic. I need to feel like I belong to the organization. I need to feel like the organization is going to back me when I am in need. And I want to feel happy. I mean, the most of the time in our entire life we spend is at our workplace. And if that workplace doesn't ensure healthy environment, a happy environment, good colleagues, then it's just a waste of time. I don't want that life. I don't want my junior doctors to experience this sort of thing. I want to make sure that the patients get the best energetic doctors, presence around them. The support needs to come from the top of the organization, and I'm glad to say that the chief executive and the deputy chief executive, the director of culture and people, they are all very engaged, involved. There are quite a few task force networks, staff groups are working around. I find NHS Grampian is always a proactive and organization, and the interest among the senior leaders and other staff groups I have seen, I'm really hopeful that we'll get out of it. Culture changes doesn't happen in a day, in a week, in a month or a year, so it may take a decade, but I just want to see the same sort of enthusiasm which I am seeing just now over next many years.
If people take something away from this video, I think it should be that if you weren't brave enough to speak up the last time you witnessed or heard something that made you uncomfortable, then the next time hopefully they'll be brave enough and know that it will make a difference even though it might seem like the smallest of things, it will make a difference to that person of colour's life. It will ease some of that burden. It's wearing, it's on a day-to-day basis, it's expected, it's the norm. I'm sure most people of colour would say the same thing. You kind of, it's almost like it's part of life. But I think it gets you in particular when you're low, when you're tired, when something has happened in life that has just made you a little bit less happy, and it can all just come back on you like a tidal wave, that feeling that you kind of carry with you, and it comes back to you every time someone does make a comment. It's all those little wounds from before that you carry with you. I think one that a lot of different people of colour experience, and I experience really regularly, that really frustrates me, is the "where are you from?" question. And I can only really explain, and I think it gets me quite significantly, because I'm of mixed race, but I was born in the UK. Culturally, I'm British, and I consider myself to be from Britain. But I often get people asking me where I'm from, and so I kind of say, well, I was born in Poole in Dorset, in England. One time I did get someone say, no, before that, which left me stuck, really. I have had people tell me I speak English really well, which is very condescending, and that is quite undermining. So I remember on one night shift, I was in charge. I was looking after a patient who'd been drinking heavily, and so we were observing the patient, and when they woke up, they were very aggressive. They were causing a lot of trouble, so I had to go and assess them to see if they could be discharged, and they started shouting racial abuse at me. I think shouting something like Vietnam, go back to Vietnam. And no one said anything. Eventually, I asked for security to be called, and then it escalated to the police being called. But that was a difficult situation, because not only was I in charge, I was also looking after a patient, but then she was directing abuse at me, and it would have been really kind of nice if someone could have backed me up, I think, because again, you just have to swallow it down and then get on with the job and be professional. And I think the importance of just someone standing by you or standing up for you, with you, would be really nice sometimes. I haven't had anyone stand up for me when someone's been, and I say it's been microaggressions, so I guess, you know, people don't often recognize it happening. Yeah, no, I can't say that I have had anyone call out racism on my behalf. I've been in situations where I have called out, perhaps I've taken offense at a joke, and I've been told that I've been too sensitive. If people next time they witness or hear something that makes them uncomfortable, if the last time they weren't brave enough to say anything, hopefully the next time they will be, and they'll know that it will make a difference to the person who's being targeted. You can relieve some of that burden and make their life a little better.
If you experience racism or discrimination, it's important that you seek help and support. There are many people who can help you and support you in NHS Grampian. You can speak to Equality and Diversity on the extension shown here, or if you prefer, you can contact them by email. and their details are shown here too. You can also speak to your line manager, to occupational health, human resources, a trusted friend, a trade union or staff side representative. Call out racism and discrimination wherever you find it. Never suffer in silence.